Okay, good day, people. This is our friend Eric Fromm, the 20th century social psychologist, and he's talking about, culture is death, culture is life, that there are certain kinds of cultural resonances that lead to a kind of denial of life, and there are certain kind of cultural phenomena that really embrace vitality, and that's what this is about. What does Fromm mean by necrophilia in a non-sexual and non-physical sense? He asserts, what I mean by necrophilia in a non-sexual and non-physical sense is a fascination with everything that is dead, lifeless, with everything having to do with dismemberment, with the destruction of living relationships. And so for Fromm, right, necrophilia is not this kind of sexual phenomenon, but this sort of fascination with the unalive. And the technological realm could be approached, right, as a kind of distance from vitality, because we're not interacting as live beings, we're interacting through the inanimate technology of machine works. So what motivates the necrophiliac? And again, I have to stress this because people are weird. It's not sexual, right? The necrophiliac is motivated not by a love for the living, but by an attraction to the purely mechanical, right? The unalive. Necrophilia is not a love of death, but a love of dead things, of everything that is not alive. Its opposite is love of the living, a love of everything that grows, that has structure, that forms a unity, that is not dismembered. And like what Fromm calls this love of living is biophilia. So biophilia is the opposite of necrophilia, love of life versus love of death. The necrophiliac is hopelessly what? Another way we can express this is to say that the necrophiliac is hopelessly boring, right? He's unalive. We're always drawn to what is alive. What makes people attractive? It is vitality that makes people attractive. So what is vitality? Vitality is life energy. Vitality is that kind of dynamism or verve when you're just full of life and like kind of spontaneous, happy, free moments of expression. That's vitality. People fall for the notion that attraction comes from advertising. These people don't have much of a self. That's what he's going to say. So these days, people seem to think we men talk this way, and the cosmetic industry tries to convince women that is true. We seem to think people can make themselves attractive and lovable if they paint their faces this way or that, adopt a certain expression, that is supposed to be modern and irresistible. A lot of people fall for that kind of thing, usually people who don't have much of a self. Tendencies growing out of the death wish result from what? We can demonstrate that destructive tendencies, that is, tendencies growing out of the death wish, result from failures in the art of living. And I think that, this is Fromm's genius that, if you like this idea of the necrophiliac, the lover of things unalive, there's a reason for that, and the reason is a kind of failure in the art of living. The tendencies from the death wish come out of a sort of lack of vitality or failure in the art of living. They're the consequences of not living correctly. People who have no chance to be free and to develop their own powers lose their capacity for what? Well, what Fromm is going to say is people lose their capacity for spontaneity. He says we can show that people who have no chance to be free and to develop their own powers, people who are hemmed in, who live in a class or in a society in which everything functions in a mechanical, lifeless way, these people lose their capacity for spontaneity. And so what is spontaneity? I mean, spontaneity is that aspect of vitality which is kind of free in the moment, and it's adaptive, and it doesn't have a sort of pre-structured outcome. I mean, I think that's the key for the spontaneous. It doesn't have a pre-structured outcome, and that's why it takes courage, because you don't know precisely how things are going to turn out. In the final analysis, we can say that a person who finds no joy in living will try to do what? In the final analysis, we can say that a person who finds no joy in living will try to avenge himself and will prefer to destroy life rather than feel that he can make no sense of his life at all. And so, I mean, I think this is, Fromm again, he's a social psychologist that worked with deranged people. So this is his experience of seeing people who kind of lose the capacity for loving life, right? And so they turn to this darker side, which he calls necrophilia. What takes the place of human beings in our cybernetic society? Well, he's going to say it's things, it's this necrophilic obsession with things that are unalive, people are alive, animals are alive, plants are alive. Fromm asserts this. He says, it's difficult to explain in any concise way why it is that things are taking the place of human beings in our cybernetic society and culture, pushing human beings aside. As we mentioned earlier, this evening, people are becoming increasingly uncertain of their own being.